Welcome to Birth at Work, the podcast where we dive into the real, unfiltered stories of what it's actually like to navigate pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood while building a career. I'm your host, Krislyn Powell. Each episode, we sit down with working parents who share their honest experiences, the victories, the setbacks, the moments of doubt, and the strategies that actually work. Because let's be honest, most workplace policies weren't designed with pregnancy and new parenthood in mind. And it's time we talked about what that really means for the millions of us trying to grow families while growing our careers. I'm excited to chat again today. I get to share with you a little bit about the topic of birth, pregnancy rather, as a healing state. I know that pregnancy can be like full of ups and downs. It can be hard. You can have morning sickness. I know a lot of people experience HG as well. Well, not a lot. That can be rare, but it's like a common thing that's well known now. There can be different risks that pop up throughout pregnancy, and your body's growing, developing, and there's just a lot happening. Okay, so I'm going to just share a personal story. I found out I was pregnant with this baby, when I was on a trip with my family, my mom, dad, a few of my sisters, and my brother. It was right around Christmas time, and I was like so dehydrated on that trip, so tired. Like exercising was like a feat, and I started feeling really nauseous. And it was like around the time I was supposed to get my period. And I knew, like before I went on the trip, I was like, I was going to bring a pregnancy test, but it was expired, the one that I had. So I was like, okay, I probably am going to need to buy a pregnancy test when I'm out there. Because I've been really tired. I thought, Anyway, all these symptoms were coming up. And yeah, sure enough, it was like the day before the end of the trip. My sister went with me to the grocery store and we bought a pregnancy test. And I found out I was pregnant. I already instinctively knew. And it's so funny that we have to like pee on a little stick to trust. But yeah, oh my gosh, the symptoms, then like that evening, I had so much trouble sleeping that night. I had a massive migraine, and then I was so nauseous, and I was like, I have to get on an early flight in the morning. Like I have to be at the airport before 7 a.m. and like get on this flight and fly. I actually don't really like to fly, but I already get nauseous on planes, trains, cars, whatever, boats especially. I get motion sick. And so I'm already like prone to nausea. And I was just like, what the heck? This is so early. Why am I so sick? And I think a lot of that was like, there was a lot of stress happening at the time on this this family trip. There was like a lot of feelings that came up on the trip. A lot of conversations were had. And then also like I was thinking critically about, oh my gosh, what does this like mean for my work? And I was in a really stressful period of coordinating a million things for my job, and was worried about that. And then also telling my husband, like, what does this mean? And so, yeah, I was just feeling sick, and it sucked. The flight was horrible. It was under 2 hours, and it still was rough. And then, like for probably like 8 weeks of pregnancy, I was so nauseous, and like food just didn't sound good. And then I also I got within a few weeks really, really bad indigestion, which I had never experienced before in my life. And some people were like, oh, it's because it's a girl. It's all the hair on her head. Really? The baby's like a bean right now. I don't think it's the hair on the baby's head. But that was just kind of another thing. Yeah, and then I stumbled upon, which, I'll link them, but take what you will. I stumbled upon the Village Birth, and they're actually like huge proponents of sovereign birth, which I'm just not there yet. I would love to be at some point, but I do feel like which again, they talk about how like if you feel like you need someone to help you, then, and this is a whole like medical conversation. That's not the purpose of this podcast. It's like whoever your medical provider is, great. And then if you don't have one, if you choose to birth sovereignly, like great. Just, preparing yourself in the right ways. And they talk about how they have had medical births, and then they've not. They also talk about like really like mindset and self-empowerment and radical responsibility, and like what all of that means, and how like you birth the way that you live. And so I went to this session. I'm like sitting there in a virtual session. And like, yeah, I was like really frustrated with my husband at the time because I wanted to switch providers and he was like, we were butting heads on that. And yeah, I went to the session and I was like sharing that I was frustrated with, I think I had several internal frustrations. I think I was frustrated with like my husband and how he was like interpreting my needs for the birth. And then I was frustrated with my work and like how they were going to support me or not support me. I was really worried about that. And I couldn't like share the news for like a few months. And that was like sucked. And then I was frustrated with, just like the state of things changing. I was excited, but I was also like, oh my gosh, I have a million things to plan. And I went into planning mode straight away and started booking everything. Because, if you don't book all of the things, as soon as you find out you're pregnant, then everything is booked. It's like wedding planning. It's wild. I then went to this virtual session and got hit with like a lot of realizations of like, well, basically, like you kind of need to accept that your husband is going to meet you where he's at and he's going to support you in the way that he can and like accept that. And then whatever you need in your birth, like you need to make happen. Like, what the heck? Like, no, like the village should come support me and like I should have people like, like I'm birthing the baby. Doesn't it make sense to have my work give me everything I need? Doesn't it make sense to have my husband give me everything I need? Doesn't it make sense to have like my medical staff be like intuitively in line with everything that I need? And I think all of those, like just looking back at all of those things, I think maybe like some of those inner frustrations, and we talked about this in the open conversation we had, like can be blocks and it can actually hinder us from feeling good during pregnancy. Having a smooth and easy birth, which is totally possible. I had a great birth, my first baby, and I'm looking forward to an even greater experience with this one. Anyway, yeah, when I was like, oh, well, okay, self-responsibility, radical responsibility, whatever, like self-work, inner work, affirming that like, I trust myself. This is going to be okay. I have all the tools I need. I started doing some of that work. And I mean, sitting in that session, I was kind of like, yeah, you guys are not helpful. You're supposed to actually tell me like how to change his mind for my husband, or you're supposed to tell me like how to get the resources and support I need for my work, or you're supposed to tell me like how to have the perfect environment, medically speaking, so that like I get whatever I need. And yeah, they didn't tell me any of those things. They just said like this, like pregnancy is a healing state, number one. So like look at it that way. It's not a disease. It's not a medical like situation that you're having. It's a healing state. And then number two is like having that radical responsibility of like reframing. So, and resourcing. This is the support that I'm getting, and this is that person's capacity to support me. Recognizing and then understanding like, okay, reframe. If that's what I'm getting from them, where can I go for additional support, or what can I do to change the dynamic so I don't feel like I need something from this person? I already have it within me. I can provide it for myself. And so, some of that frustration was like, well, we got to like book this, and this, and hey, honey, like I need you to go on these tours, and like I need you to like be supportive with the choices I'm making, and I need you to like help me pay for these things. And at the end of the day, it was kind of like, well, I can do all of those things myself. And so I started doing that. And then we aligned more in our communication, and I feel like I'm getting the birth that I want. And then if you listen to a previous episode where I share about the current, like where I'm at currently in my conversation navigation with my work and how it's really happening like I didn't want it to happen, I had to have kind of a radical moment where I looked at myself and said, well, you chose this, by a series of decisions that I made in my life over the past year. That was empowering in a way. It was also like humbling in a way. But all this to say, like those early stages of feeling really, really sick, it wasn't until about, 8 weeks in, I attended this virtual training, and I'm like, again, like not helpful. But I started doing the work, and I started making sure that, I prioritized movement. I'd also been counseled by someone else that I really trust that, if I incorporated exercise regularly in my pregnancy, I wouldn't have any issues, that I would be really healthy. And that's been the case, which has been great. And then I, made some dietary changes, and I just, focused in on like being more comfortable and being at ease in my life. And my nausea and indigestion went away, which is significant to me because normally it's like, oh, when you hit the second trimester, that's when like all the symptoms erase. But it was like at 8 weeks around that point. Because I think I probably went to the seminar a little bit earlier. It was probably around 6 weeks. Yeah, maybe even 4 to 6 weeks. But at the 8 week mark, that's when things shifted. So I'd been like incorporating some of that for a couple weeks, and I noticed it dissipating, and I was like, this is freaking cool. But also, there are a number of things I was still filling out and working out. But I also want to speak to pregnancy being a healing state. I was like, not only mindset, but also just like expansion. So in my first baby that I had, which was my second pregnancy, in that year, I was already pursuing a graduate degree. I thought about like stopping and pausing, and the advice I was given by my mentor and advisor at the time was like, wouldn't do that if I were you. Like, if you stop, you probably won't finish. So I like trudged on, finished my thesis during postpartum, which was like wild, and then graduated. But then I had started a new job. I like just a few months before having my baby, I took a new job. And then we had moved into our house just like maybe a month and a half before that. I had moved in, like we had bought a house for the first time. So new house, new job, fishing, graduate school, like what? All of those things happened in the time that I was pregnant and then like just had a baby. It was like huge explosive growth experience for me. And so just looking back at that, like when I heard the phrase pregnancy is a healing state in that virtual seminar, I was like, and then expansive, the word expansive kept being brought up. I was like, well, this is a reckoning for me because it's true. Not to say that you have to run 1,000 miles an hour when you're pregnant or, have just birthed the baby, but it opens so many doors. And I think this is my personal opinion. I'm sure we could figure out how to scientifically back it, but maybe I'll link a study or something, but a woman's brain changes in composition. I have heard this. A woman's brain changes with hormones and whatnot, and basically makes her more in tune to her baby and more able to mother. And so empathy is expanded and intuitiveness is expanded, like being able to be intuitive. And so I think with all of those, like expansions, we're also able to shift our perspective and take a step back and look at our life and be like, whoa, I can grow here in different ways, and just like totally flip the script and make waves in the right direction for our lives. And so I love to hear that pregnancy is a healing state. I feel really empowered by that. I also feel like really strongly about mindset and meditation and the ability to visualize what you want. And I think that goes into birth. I think it goes into life. You birth the way that you live the way that you birth, kind of thing. And I think it's all intertwined. Obviously, I'm still practicing this. This is like my second birth that I'm going to go through. But this is just kind of an exploratory topic right now. But I would love to continue the conversation and hear maybe, because I know, I recognize that there are traumatic stories that happen. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that a mother chooses those. I think there are different things that we choose in life. I don't necessarily attribute trauma to that, but I am saying like small things and tweaks in life, like my nausea or indigestion that were small. Those can be simply diverted by mindset. And I think too, like over time, your thoughts become your words become actions become character. Character is everything. That's a quote. Yeah, I really truly think that over time, our mindset and how we're living in it, what's going on in our head is also our experience. And so I'm just very grateful that I've had really, really smooth pregnancies and been fit and been healthy and good births. I mean, birth will have a good birth as well. Births, plural. But I'd love to hear like opinions and perspectives on this, on like the ability to expand while you're pregnant and the ability to maybe surrender to a little bit to the wave of life. Thanks for listening. That's a wrap on today's episode of Birth at Work. If our topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on social or via email. Your experiences and questions help shape future episodes. Remember, you're not alone in this journey of balancing career and family. Every challenge you're facing, someone else has navigated too, and every victory you celebrate, big or small, deserves to be recognized. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other working parents find these conversations when they need them the most. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing these stories, please share this episode with them. Until next time, remember, you don't have to choose between your career dreams and your family dreams. You're already proving that every day. Thanks for listening to Birth at Work. I'm Chrislyn Powell, and I'll see you next time.